Imagine this. You're a young woman who decides to go to Mexico for a sunny vacation with one of your friends. You also decide to go to a bar one night to have a good time. However, you end up having some strange guy come up to you and your friends and hit on one of your girlfriends. You stick up for the girl, telling the guy no means no. And the guy seems to take a hint and walk away, but the next thing you know, you're knocked out cold on the ground for a full 5 minutes. So is your friend. Then a Mexican woman scoops you up and takes you into a cab to the hospital because it's that bad. That's exactly what happened to a girl named Jamie Coutts. She was knocked out and badly beaten. Her friend's name was Genevieve Thomas, or Gina. If you've been watching my channel for some time, you may recognize Jamie's name from a previous video. She was the girl from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, who was in the news in spring of this year. She had a guy stalking her for 40 straight minutes in the streets of Vancouver, and she recorded the whole ordeal. The guy who followed her didn't even flinch, even though he knew he was being recorded. Well, Jamie's back in the news this time, only it is so much worse. She was badly beaten and she was taken to the hospital in Playa del Carmen. Let's get to the details of what happened. On Saturday, December 4th, while Jamie was on vacation, she went to the Coyote Lounge Bar with her friends for a night out. A guy named Peter Nowacek, who's a professional boxer from Ontario, Canada, and nicknamed the Heartbreaker, with a record of 4 straight wins and 3 knockouts, he was the one who was hitting on one of the girls, and Jamie and Gina were with them. But, as I said, he wasn't taking no for an answer. Now, Jamie and Gina told him to leave the girl alone. Gina said he wouldn't stop pestering one girl we were with no matter how many times she said she wasn't interested. So Jamie and I stepped up and started telling him to go away and leave her alone. So Peter then walked away and then turned around and charged at them, smashing Gina in the jaw and knocking her down, and then running at Jamie and repeatedly punching her in the face, and she was knocked out cold. Peter broke Jamie's nose in multiple places, chipped one of her teeth, and damaged her eye. Jamie also needed stitches along her face and has to go for surgery for her eye. And Gina needed stitches on the back of her head, and she also got a concussion. Now, warning, I'm going to show you these pictures. They are a little graphic. They are a lot graphic. So if you don't want to see them or you get queasy, definitely don't look. But I won't post them for long, but I'm going to post them. The man with his training in boxing is already a weapon. And so this guy knows exactly what he's doing when he's throwing a punch. Don't you agree? But I guess he feels like a big man with 3 knockouts in the ring and had to add another 2 knockouts to his repertoire with these women, now having 5 under his belt. Real hero. And speaking of knockouts, let's take a look at some of the footage and how quickly Peter knocks out these men with his weapon. Now here's what the girls posted on Facebook. Genevieve says, "As some of you may have heard, my friend Jamie and I got beat up in Mexico by a Canadian boxer from Toronto. He wouldn't stop pestering one girl we were with no matter how many times she said she wasn't interested. So Jamie and I stepped up and started telling him to go away, leave her alone, F off, etc. He finally looked like he was going to leave, walked away, then turned around and ran straight at me and smoked me in the jaw, knocking me out for a minute, busting the back of my head open, then turned around and ran at Jamie, who was 10 feet away, and got her square in the face, knocking her out for 5 minutes, breaking her nose in multiple places, busting open her face, and breaking one of her teeth. He is currently in police custody and will be charged. We are so thankful for the locals who have helped us, the woman who carried Jamie's limp body into a taxi and took us to the hospital, and for the 2 guys who drove us from the hospital to police station, to the hospital again, and then back to our hotel. We did not know this man, had never met him before the incident. He was in the club we were at with our friends and followed us out trying to get our friend to go home with them." On December 10th, Jamie made an update regarding her face. She said, "Yesterday, Gina and I went to the nose specialist in Playa. We arrived, the doctor took all my bandages off and cleaned my face. He continued to check out my nose from the surface. After moving it around with his hands, he let me know all of the bones were still loose and that he hopes the structural part of my nose was not broken, but we would need to do a CT scan on my brain for internal bleeding and a CT scan on my face to look at my skull and eye socket, which would also tell more about my nose.
This is the rib of the eye is broken here. You can see that it's broken here. The bones of the nose, this part of the bone, this is the left side, is deep into the nose. So you have a fracture on the rib of the eye, on the floor of the eye. The communication between the eye and the nose and part of the bone nose are deep inside into the nose. And the muscle and the fat around the left eye is dripping, is going through the sinus, the maxillary sinus. Okay, this is part of the CT scan. We have the bigger. I'm gonna give you more of this. This is the idea just to explain it.
Okay. After reviewing the scans, we could re-break my nose and reset it enough so I could fly back to Canada to do further surgery on my nose. He quoted approximately 7,000 Canadian to do these things, with the last of my funds available to my name, which included help from my family, from Genevieve and her family, and e-transfers from loving friends. I have zero access to the GoFundMe until I am back in Canada. Side note, I'll talk about that in a minute. I agreed to the nose reset and the CT scan on my face, but said no to the scan looking for internal bleeding as I was officially out of money. Thank God I did the CT scan on my eye because we found out that my skull was broken very, very badly below my eye and I would need immediate surgery. My eye was falling down into the crevice, and with every movement of my eye, the tendons holding it in were catching in the crevice of the break and ripping. Because of this, he was unable to touch my nose and wanted to take me immediately to Cancun for surgery. Unable to give me a proper quote, he said if I allowed them to take me to Cancun, just moving me from one hospital to the next and having them look at me would cost $10,000 US. Side note, Canadian, that's about 13,000. And surgery would be upwards of 40K US. Again, that'd be 52 grand approximately. I begged him to let me fly home if I got on the first available flight and headed straight to a Canadian hospital for surgery. He signed off, had me do a rushed PCR test. I had my mom book our flights and talk to the Canadian embassy to have everything organized with our passports. I'm currently sitting in the airport waiting to board my flight, which I am absolutely terrified for since flying in my condition is highly not recommended and I need to prepare myself for immense pain, swelling, and possible bleeding from my stitches ripping open again. I'm praying for a smooth flight and terrified for surgery, as having flown 7 hours before heading to the hospital, I know from past experiences that they may not be able to put me under fully. I'm terrified of losing my eye, or the doctors not being able to fix it, or it being too late to fix properly, as it's now been almost 6 full days since the incident. I am so beyond grateful for everyone's love and compassion throughout this scary experience. I'm grateful I didn't opt out of the CT scan on my face, otherwise I would have no idea and the damage would be irreversible. Thank you so much for everyone's help towards this GoFundMe and getting me home safely. After surgery, I will do another update. Now, Jamie was able to fly home and she headed straight to the Vancouver General Hospital. She said we arrived at 12:15 and were able to leave the next day at 8:45. In that, they cut off my fake lashes on the one eye, removed my stitches besides one, took a CT scan, talked to a surgeon about what was to come, and had my blood work taken. Their hope is that I can be taken in Monday for surgery on my eye, which includes metal plates to hold the pieces of my skull together that are broken. I believe 2 different spots. We don't have a confirmed time or date yet, though. They also let me know that the surgery, they would be able to fix my eye, but I would need to wait longer before my nose can be fixed. I currently have so much sinus fluid buildup that I cannot breathe at all through my nose. I'm not allowed to blow my nose or put any pressure on my sinuses. I can't taste anything at all, and the sinus discomfort is giving me migraines. After leaving the hospital, I had an appointment at the ophthalmologist for 11:30. He looked at my eye in my CT scan and said that the hope is my eye will return to full function after surgery, which will be approximately 3 weeks healing time. That I currently do have internal bleeding in my head, but the way my eye is broken, it's actually able to drain the bleeding naturally without too much pooling. And that when surgery does happen, I could potentially be spending a few nights in the hospital. Something that gave me relief on the urgency of my eye surgery was that it's actually better to wait a few days until the swelling is minimal as possible before going into surgery. The doctor in Mexico said I needed to go into surgery ASAP, so when I got back to Canada, I was frantic as I was terrified of losing my eye from waiting too long. Although it's been almost 7 days exactly since the incident, it'll do more damage to go into surgery with too much swelling. So as of right now, I'm at home with my mom, trying to sleep lots, trying to ice lots, and waiting to hear back from a confirmed surgery date time. And Jamie just actually announced yesterday that they booked a surgery time, and she should be having it today, which is December 13th, as the time of this recording. As for Dingleberry Heartbreaker, or I should say Facebreaker, the 200-pound 27-year-old Peter Nowacek was arrested and is now charged. Stay tuned for the charges because it hasn't exactly detailed what he was charged for, or with, I should say. And if you really think about this, I mean, first of all, we know he's a weapon. But he goes and clocks one of the girls, and there's absolutely not an ounce of remorse for his actions because he then turns and goes and beats the crap out of Jamie. Real hero, right? Looking for his belt. Now, one of Jamie's friends from Vancouver said, she's obviously so much in pain, she's really sad, and she's not doing well. She said she's just devastated. Jamie's the most bubbly person I know, and just a sweet girl, and she's just so sad. Gina said, we are so thankful to the locals who have helped us, the woman who carried Jamie's limp body into a taxi and took us to the hospital, and for the two guys who drove us from hospital to police station to hospital again and then back to our hotel. Now, Jamie has a GoFundMe account, like I mentioned. It was set up by her friend Saturn Rose, and their goal is $50,000. They have not yet met that goal. I will put that link below. Perhaps Peter should be contributing to that as well. As for what this will cover, Jamie did not have travel insurance in place. She did say it's covering any surgery costs in Mexico, and she said it's also covering a place for Gina and I to stay for the remainder of our time here, which was in Mexico. They're back now, as well as flights back home when it becomes time, and any pharmacy costs. When I am back home, I will be unable to work, so it will be covering my rent and bills and any lawyer fees I will be enduring. Thank you again so much for all of your love and support, and a big thank you for Saturn for setting this all up. I've heard very, very little about Peter and his charges in Canada. So this is really interesting. I haven't heard much in Canada about this issue. Let's have a chit chat below. Feel free to vent in the comments about this heartbreaker. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Please like and please share this out. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon.